Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. I want to wish everyone a happy new year, even though this being the first of 2025 is a real tragic case that we are reporting on from New Orleans, Louisiana. And you see the little graphic on the screen. 10 dead, 35 hurt. That number has been fluctuating to a lower number, as that was the upper number that was put out earlier. Sometimes people will show up at a hospital on their own, and it's difficult for the police to get an accurate number early on. Let's hope that the 10 dead does not change. That is so horrific. And we're going to report to you as to what happened here. These situations are happening far too often. The only thing we can do as law enforcement is figure out ways to prevent people from getting vehicles on these paths where tons of pedestrians are hanging out, enjoying the New Year's. And it's happened in New York City. It's happened in Germany. Here it's happened in New Orleans. It's happened in other places in the world. This seems to be a popular way of attacking people. And surely this is a terrorist act. I don't care what they define it as. You know, the FBI says, New Orleans police said it is a terrorist attack, and the FBI said it's not. What makes it a terrorist attack is the political ideology of the person who commits it, and if it was for those political reasons. So it was sort of splitting hairs here, but this was a horrific attack. An FBI agent on News Nation said this is right out of the Al-Qaeda playbook. That doesn't necessarily mean that this person that did this, who they have yet to identify, I find that a little bit suspect also. There's no reason not to put his name out right now. That's the FBI is usually behind that when they don't release things. We all want to know who this guy is. All we know is his truck. The plates were from Texas. There's no doubt that they know who he is. Anyway, folks, hold on to your hats. Hold on to your seats. You're about to enter true crime from a police perspective. You're about to enter the off-the-cuff zone, the police off-the-cuff zone.
There has to be some common sense.
They were the ones who called 911 to get him help, and now they're calling for change.
And now, a word from our sponsor. BetOnline continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, the NBA and college basketball, NHL to UFC. Head to BetOnline today and don't forget to use promo code BLEAV, BELIEVE, for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, the game starts here. Folks, the New York Times described this horrific incident. Here's the latest on the attack in New Orleans. At least 10 people were killed and 30 more were injured after a man drove a pickup truck into crowds on Bourbon Street in New Orleans in the early hours of New Year's Day in what city officials called a deliberate attack. The driver crashed the truck and then died following a shootout with police officers. The FBI said it was investigating the attack as an act of terrorism. It was very intentional behavior. This man was trying to run over as many people as he possibly could. The New Orleans Police Superintendent Ann Kirkpatrick said in a news conference Wednesday morning. He was hell-bent on creating the carnage and the damage that he did. According to Ms. Kirkpatrick, the man drove the truck at a high speed into crowds at around 3:15 a.m. before crashing and opening fire, shooting 2 police officers. Investigators said they later found what appeared to be improvised explosive devices in the truck and were trying to determine whether the devices were viable. Officials urged the public to stay away from a half-mile stretch of Bourbon Street and surrounding blocks as the FBI investigated. The attack happened in the area of Canal and Bourbon Streets during New Year's Eve celebrations, which bring large, raucous crowds to the city's French Quarter. It also came just hours before college football's Sugar Bowl between Notre Dame and the University of Georgia was scheduled to kick off at the city's Superdome. So obviously, the person that did this attack did it intentionally. He wanted to injure and or kill the highest amount of people necessary. When he was finally stopped, or his vehicle was stopped, he had a plan B, and that was to shoot it out with the police. Fortunately, he lost that shootout. He was killed by New Orleans police, but not until he was able to wound 2 New Orleans police officers who were reportedly in stable condition at this point. Anyway, to join me today, we have retired NYPD Sergeant, Professor at Albertus Magnus College in Connecticut, attorney. Welcome to the show, Professor Mike Geary.
Bill, good morning. Good to see you. Thank you for having me on. Happy New Year.
Mike, we're not a stranger to this type of attack.
No.
In 2017, this very type of attack happened in New York City, where someone used a pickup truck in downtown Manhattan along a bike path
Yes.
to kill 8 people. And then just very recently, it happened in Germany, the same type of thing. And it happened a few years ago, I think, in Michigan, right around Christmas time.
Yes.
This doesn't necessarily mean it's of the Al-Qaeda type of terrorist attack, but I think we can consider this a terrorist attack. Your thoughts?
Bill, yeah, there's really no universally accepted definition of terrorism. You could say terrorism, whether an act is terrorism, is defined as the number of people killed, 2 compared to, say, 50. The weapons used, was it some sort of dirty bomb, or was it machine guns used? Was there any sort of helpers? Was there a conspiracy? Was it one lone wolf just having a mental breakdown and killing? Or is it an ideology? We hope that sometime in the next couple of days, we find out if there was any communications from this person expressing any sort of ideology, because that would also be part of the definition of terrorism. So it does a number of factors, but as of right now, we have to say, and I agree with the New Orleans mayor and the FBI special agent in charge, that they're investigating it as an act of terrorism because of the way it was carried out.
100%. I want to play this. Is from News Nation. This is an FBI agent, a retired FBI agent by the name of Stuart Kaplan. Very articulate guy, one of the better guys, talking heads on TV. Let me play him right now.
Stuart, thank you so much for being here this morning. This information continues to flood into the newsroom. We now know authorities are looking into the identity of this suspect, the driver, who is now deceased. How are they digging? Where are they digging specifically, Stuart, to reveal a potential motive in this case?
Good morning, Kelly, and thank you for having me. And just so your viewers know, I'm very familiar with New Orleans. I spent the best part of my life, 4 years there. Still very tied into that community, as well as the local and state and federal law enforcement. What I can tell you is, because the bad actor was shot and killed, what they're doing right now, and very hastily and very quickly, is to work backwards. There is some information out there, and I will say to your viewing audience, if you are planning to attend any additional celebrations today, if you see something, say something. This may be a bigger, larger plot, a more coordinated effort towards other venues. This was a very well thought out and planned act. This is an act of terrorism, that is the use of violence to create fear. Fortunately, New Orleans, which has the best preparation with respect to large venues such as this, because they do this all the time, fortunately, they were able to neutralize this threat very quickly, notwithstanding 10 people and many others were killed and injured. But we need to be very vigilant right now, today, because there may be other attacks that are coming our way.
Yeah. We know even after authorities make connections, begin to put the pieces of this puzzle together, there is information they keep under wraps until they're ready to release it. As we await a press conference at 11 a.m. Central Time, would you mind providing some context for us? What sort of information falls under that category and why?
Well, let me first just say it is impossible in 2024, now 2025, to go unidentified with respect to not being able to quickly identify people such as who carry out these type of horrendous acts. And so it is my understanding this individual has already been identified as much as what or how he or where he came from. I will suggest this may be a byproduct of our unfortunate open border policies, perhaps coming through our southern border not too long ago, within the last week. And of course, unfortunately, this is the catastrophic result of an individual who was able to now create panic and fear and concerns as we move forward into a new year. And so the FBI, with its counterparts, is moving very, very quickly, given the urgency of other events that are scheduled today to try to identify and neutralize potential additional bad actors that have already been in the planning and preparation stage.
Mike, this is very scary, because here this individual carries out this horrific terrorist attack. And now you heard they have the Rose Bowl today in New Orleans between Notre Dame and Georgia, and there's another huge event. Now, would you feel confident if you were attending that game?
Bill, there's going to be at the Superdome probably 75,000. I'm not sure how much it holds. It's huge because I know you can put the Houston Astrodome inside of the New Orleans Superdome. That's how huge it is. And you got to figure, an attack inside, or if there's a lot of security, and there's going to be a lot of security anyway, even before this terrible attack, security outside. There's going to be several perimeters. There's going to be, people at ticket agents. There's going to be people searching through bags. There's going to be undercover cops just looking around to see who's doing what. There's going to be probably checkpoints, I hope, a block away. So have several checkpoints. Also have a lot of dogs, whatever you can find. U.S. Army, if you could get the loan of them, bomb sniffing dogs, anything like that you could do. But this is why a lot of people don't like crowds, because you don't want to be in a shopping mall. You don't want to be by a parade, or in a park with a lot of people, because sometimes things can go out of control, go sideways. So yeah, this is going to be rough for everyone wanting to attend the bowl game tonight, because I think kickoff is like 8:45 Eastern Standard Time. And so it's going to be watched across the country all the way to California. And there's going to be, just think of all the people that are there inside and outside. Normally, before this kind of tragedy would happen, there would be, 85, 75,000 people in the stadium, and every single bar probably in the area is going to be filled so that party goers can walk around for hours afterwards. This is a security nightmare. This is not new. These kind of thoughts have been with us for many, many years. You just go back to like the mid 1970s or even earlier, like with attacks on soft targets by extremists, by terrorists. And this is we're ripe here in New Orleans for another terrorist attack, because inside the stadium might be difficult to get, weapons in the stadium, but outside the stadium, people milling around. You could, someone with a 9mm and 2 clips could shoot 45 people in a matter of 1 minute. That, Phil knows that, I know that, people know that. So the softer the target, the more danger there is today in New Orleans.
Mike, I think that we have to start learning our lesson in the fact that pedestrians and vehicle traffic do not mix, period, right? In New York City, just because that's what we know, New Year's Eve, there's no possibility that a vehicle can get on the path where the celebrations are. They have what's called Jersey barriers, that are the concrete barriers. And every side street, they put a huge truck blocking
Right.
the side street, because you cannot even allow this possibility to occur. And you would think that we would learn our lesson with these large gatherings of people to secure it in that way.
You know, Bill, it's, you know, you can't make every single corner secure, but you know, and I know, you walk around parts of Manhattan, and besides the barriers, they have those decorative barriers that are up like every 5 feet around the perimeter of a intersection. They look decorative, but they're there to stop vehicle traffic from trying to enter upon a sidewalk. You know, you have all that. And, you know, there's also the desire that we want to live our lives. And if we succumb to, you know, the terrorist threats of danger, imminent danger, that we change our lives. So we want to live our life as free as possible. We want to enjoy all that, you know, we have to live for. And to, but you're right, it is so difficult. In New Orleans, they had barriers set up. I don't know if they had those Jersey barriers. They will in the future from now on. They might have had just those little sawhorses set up. You know, they're like we had the NYPD many, many years ago, those blue sawhorses, and have them put up. And then people figured people are just revelers. But that's the difficulty here, is that you do not want to turn Manhattan or New Orleans into like a fortress, you know, because that means that the perpetrators have won. But yeah, it is so difficult. You just look around Manhattan, how easily it would be to take out 24 people in Manhattan. You know, because if you think like a terrorist, you see that, and that's scary. But we have to balance that, the safety factor, with the probability of danger, you know, and people's enjoyment. And this is the saddest part, is this was just people enjoying the new year.
You know, Mike, we're both 9/11 first responders, and we get it. You know, we get it. We understand that whole philosophy behind, if you see something, say something.
Yeah.
In addition, we also get it that you can't cancel your life for the threat that terrorists present to you. You have to meet them head on, and you have to let them know that you're not going to allow this to happen, you know. And the way you do that is you harden the targets. We haven't heard that word in a while.
Yeah.
And I think, as the FBI agent said, you know, there's a lot of terrorists in this country right now that came through our porous borders in the past 4 years, and we don't even know who they are, where they are. They're all over this country. And that's disturbing, because one of the biggest responsibilities of government is to protect the people. And by just allowing bad people to pour through our borders, they're not fulfilling their job as government officials in doing that, Mike.
Yeah, the first job, the number one job, before anything else happens, you have to protect the citizenry. How do you protect the citizenry? Have borders, and have, you know, real borders that actually mean something. If you don't have a border, then we're not a country. We're just an area. And, you know, and you can't have that. But the sad part is they've neglected that. Their number one job, they've neglected it over political ideology, over common sense and safety of people. Hopefully things will change. We'll see. But
Let me go back to this from News Nation.
Well, that sounds like a very specific assessment of this situation. May I ask you what leads you to that assessment? Is there any additional information you may be able to share?
Well, let me just say this. The individual who carried out this attack in New Orleans was very heavily armed. He was wearing body armor. He had improvised explosive devices. There's information to suggest that he had assistants and others who aided and abetted. And like I said, it is impossible to carry out your private life in public, meaning that all of us are under constant scrutiny and surveillance. And certainly this individual, now coming into contact with the FBI, federal, state, and local law enforcement, and other assets that are available to our federal law enforcement partners, will be able to easily backtrack and identify who this individual is, where he was just prior to last night's event, and several days following.
Thank you for watching. Go to news.
So important. The investigative portion of this, of course, is extremely important. There's no doubt that the FBI, the New Orleans police, they know who this individual is. Now you got to work backwards. We got to see what he was doing in the days leading up to this. Search warrants undoubtedly are being processed or being requested from a judge to search his house, search his computer, search his cell phone, see who his associates are, see who his family is. And that's all part of this big investigation. If there's a nexus between this individual and other potential bad actors, we need to know that, Mike.
Yeah, Billy, they're going to expedite this because the FBI can expedite these search warrants and get all the information from carriers like Verizon and, you know, that sort of thing much faster than a regular police department can. So that's good. Let's see, probably in the next 72 hours, they're going to have everything on this person, all of his phone records, who he's been texting, who he's been emailing, what, you know, sites he's been looking at on his laptop. You know, are they some sort of jihadist things? Who is this guy? You know, we think it may be someone perhaps, and the FBI agent there said he alluded to the border. What happens if it isn't? What happens if it's a homegrown terrorist like Timothy McVeigh? We have a lot of them in this country too. We have to be cognizant of that. We grow enough here on our own country, in our own country, but we'll know a lot more in 72 hours. And I think the FBI probably is waiting. The only reason why I think they could be waiting is that they want to get a lot more information to present it to the public as one package rather than say, this is the name. We don't know anything else. We'll get back to you tomorrow. Get something else. We don't know some more. We'll get back to you the next day. I think they're deliberately withholding because they want to get a lot more so that they can answer a lot more questions. Because once you tell the journalists, okay, this is who the person is, they're going to ask you all those other questions. Where did they grow up? What did they do for a living? Are they married? Do they have children? Do we know their political affiliation? Do we know their educational level? Do we know this person traveled around the country? Are they itinerant? You know, so I think I'm hoping that's the reason why they're waiting. They're going to be waiting a little bit.
Mike, let me just interrupt you for a second. I'm against that philosophy.
Okay.
I think that the FBI needs to use the public as an ally in fighting this type of terrorism.
Sure.
The old philosophy, if you see something, say something. Use the millions of eyes out there that are call in a tips line, going to tell you, well, look, I saw. They use that same philosophy at the Boston Marathon bombings. How did that work out for them? You know, it worked out very badly. They had the Tsarnaev brothers identified, and they didn't put it out there against the wishes of the chief of the Boston police. So I don't agree with this FBI philosophy. I think they need to get this guy's name out there. They need to get his picture out there, and they need to use the public as an ally in this investigation. Why can't they learn that that's the way to go, not the secret squirrel FBI way? I want to play this from CNN, Mike.
To you, what more do we know about this investigation?
Well, we know it's developing at this point. Our Evan Perez was able to confirm that suspect is dead. I've been talking to some local folks on the ground there who've been telling me this is an evolving situation. In fact, right now there is a perimeter set up around that suspect's truck. So they're trying to figure out exactly where he came from. But it was around 3:15 this morning where police say that this suspect took an F-150 and started trying to intentionally hit people who were out there. We know 10 people are dead, more than 30 injured. And as you can imagine, we do have some new video into CNN that is very tough to look at. We have blurred some of the images here, but you can see some of the carnage that was left behind. Obviously, some of this video is spreading over the internet with bodies laying out there, and you can just feel for the people who were involved in this. At some point, that suspect did then start shooting at officers. 2 officers were shot. We're told they are in stable condition. Outside of that, now we start building from the investigative points, just in terms of trying to figure out why the suspect targeted this area. But take a listen to this eyewitness talk about what was going on.
Dude came through with a truck and hit by 4 people and shot by 4 people. It was about 8 to 12.
You say you saw him got out and shoot?
Nah, he was in a car. He didn't get out. He already hit him.
Now, we know the Sugar Bowl is played later on tonight. There's tons of tourists in town. You have the New Year's celebration. You put on top of that, this is the French Quarter. They did find IEDs, so there have been several clearing signs as they were been trying to do the improvised explosives. They put them in the bomb containment center and then try to blow them up on scene there. But at the same time, you've had people who could not return back to their hotels, people questioning what should they do next. They've shutting down several streets around the area as this investigation continues. We know there's a massive presence of officers down there as they start this investigation. But again, it was 3:15 this morning when this truck went around barricades and started to try to drive over people. So many questions at this point as we continue to talk to law enforcement. There will be another 11 o'clock news conference, but we should take a listen to the chief who gave us this information a little earlier this morning. Take a listen.
It did involve a man driving a pickup truck down Bourbon Street at a very fast pace, and it was very intentional behavior. This man was trying to run over as many people as he possibly could.
Superintendent Kirkpatrick couldn't even get to the hospital yet to talk to her officers. She was leaving that news conference to go talk to the officers who had been shot after this. Right now, we're not sure exactly how this ended with the suspects. So hopefully we'll get those new details. And Pam, I'll send it back to you.
All right, Ryan, stay with us. Paula, to bring you in, what more do we know about the suspect and the vehicle used in this?
Well, so far, we don't know a lot of information. We've been in touch with federal law enforcement sources. As Ryan noted, our colleague Evan Perez is told by one law enforcement official that the suspect is dead. And indications are, though, that this suspect acted intentionally, according to this federal law enforcement official. And that is something that local officials actually indicated earlier in their initial press conference. They said that the driver's actions were, quote, very intentional. Now, we know that the FBI and local officials are conducting searches of the vehicle as they seek to learn more about a potential motive here. We just got word, Pamela, that the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, has been briefed on this situation, and the FBI is obviously investigating. Now, as part of that investigation, they are looking at possible explosive devices used at the scene. As they said in the briefing earlier, there were improvised explosive devices that were found, and they're working to confirm if they were viable devices or not. So this is a quickly evolving investigation, and it requires cooperation between federal authorities and those on the ground to determine exactly why this happened.
And Paula, I know that you're well versed in this as a lawyer and have covered the Justice Department for a while. I think people found it confusing when you had the mayor come out essentially and say this is an act of terrorism, and then the FBI come out right off the bat and say this is not an act of terrorism. Help us understand the discrepancy there and why that might be.
Yeah, I think it's a little confusing holiday, conflicting messaging here, but this is not good to come out and give these kind of confusing messages. People need to understand, especially at the federal level, that terrorism actually has a legal definition, and it's much more narrow than people realize, because there were some concerns that if you label certain acts terrorism, or if you use that too broadly, it could conflict with some constitutional rights, and particularly the First Amendment right. Again, it's very confusing. It's sort of an esoteric argument, but when people think of terrorism, they think of something like this. But when it comes to the legal definition, this is why you don't see a lot of cases charged as quote unquote terrorism. They're charged with, using an explosive device. They're charged with other crimes because that's what is on the books. Those are the laws on the books. So I think the legal definitions, particularly the differences between what you might see at a local level versus the federal level, that's why there is this confusion over whether or not this was terrorism. I think most people would agree that this was terrorizing, but when it comes to the technical legalities, that's, I think, why we're getting these conflicting messages about whether this was quote unquote terrorism.
Right. And what is the concern ahead of the Sugar Bowl tonight?
Yeah,
with this?
Look, I'm the last person to report publicly on sports, but I think that this is going to be on the minds of everyone there. That it is a massive event. There's always a massive security operation for anything that happens in a large stadium in this country or abroad, be it a concert, be it a sporting event. And something like this, there's clearly going to be a heightened concern and likely heightened precautions to try to prevent anything like this from happening again. Though it does appear the signals that we're getting from law enforcement, they don't appear to be indicating.
Mike, tough to increase the security on the same day. Well, and I incorrectly said Rose Bowl before. It's obviously the Sugar Bowl. Tough to increase the security plan on the day of. I can't imagine how quickly you'd have to get, say, jersey barriers in there, and how difficult they are to move, and how difficult they are to place down without the amount of time necessary to do so. So they may even have some information. You know, we talk about the chatter on the internet, and there are people on the internet from law enforcement all the time monitoring certain sites where they hear the chatter among bad actors, terrorists, and people that would do harm to people. But as I said, very difficult and the same day of a large event like this, the Sugar Bowl, to increase the security that very same day. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Billy, we've done this before in many large events in New York City. They use a plan, they have it, it works. They use it year after year. They'll refine it a little bit, you know, as conditions change over the years. But, you know, New Orleans has hosted a Sugar Bowl. I think they've hosted it since its inception. They have a plan. They've used it. Outdoor stadium, indoor stadium, they still do all the same things, block traffic, whatever they have to do, get a certain number of officers, maybe 1,000, whatever it is, and they do it. And so now you got to go back and, okay, we're going to do this, but now we're going to throw another layer on it. Do we push out the outer perimeter another block? Can we get some sanitation trucks? If we can't get enough Jersey barriers, can we get a number of sanitation trucks, put them sideways across, you know, remember Police Plaza right after 9/11? They had a couple of sanitation trucks filled with sand, just, you know, there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Just kind of improvise until you can get something else going. Yeah, this is, you know, the New Orleans police brass and the city. Nobody's taking a coffee break. Everybody's just working nonstop to try to ad lib something, give the public a little bit more protection, another layer of protection. And that's difficulty. Like you said, physically bringing in Jersey barriers. You got to need a crane to do all this stuff. That's very difficult. They're going to have the game. I think that's the proper thing to do. I wouldn't want to have a ticket. I think I'd stay home if I had a ticket, but and just watch it from, say, a hotel room. But the game's going to go on, and they're going to ad lib a little bit extra security. And I think that's the way to go.
Absolutely. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, real crime stories. If you like real crime, true crime from a police perspective, then hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, ring that bell, hit the like button, share us with your friends and your family. And if you'd like to contribute to us financially, we have a Patreon with 4 different levels. And we also have a YouTube channel membership with, count 'em, 5 different levels. And in 2024, we had such great support from our fans, our friends, our subscribers. And hopefully we expect the same and increase in 2025. And thank you for all you guys did for us in 2024. I want to go back to the CNN report,
indicating that this is part of a wider plot.
All right. Thank you so much, Paula Reed, Ryan Young. We appreciate it. And let's bring in CNN national security analyst Juliette Kayyem and retired FBI special agent Bobby Chacon. Bobby, to start with you, we were just talking about this with Paula, that the New Orleans mayor is calling this a terrorist attack. An FBI agent told reporters that it wasn't, that there's obviously this messaging issue here. But bottom line, this is an act that caused terror in New Orleans among these revelers.
Yes, and I think what Paula highlights is that we don't have a comprehensive domestic terrorism law, and that's why the charges at the local level, and as a lawyer myself, I've lectured on this, the charges themselves have to be kind of piecemealed together. A lot of us call for a comprehensive domestic terrorism law, as we have on the international terrorism side, but we just don't have it on the domestic terrorism side. So it's really kind of like Paula said, an esoteric legal argument. But certainly the SAC of the FBI could have been more clear and said, look, we don't know if this is terrorism yet. We are looking into it, instead of declaring it not a terrorism event in contradiction of the police chief who just said it was. So I think they need to get on the same page. The first presser wasn't that great. Hopefully the second one coming up in a little while, they'll get on the same page. There is no problem legally. As a lawyer, I can tell her that there's no problem with saying we're looking into whether it's a terrorist event or not, especially in the early hours. Everybody would understand that kind of language. And I think that the legal argument of whether it's going to meet the legal standards of the charges, that's not what people need to hear and not what people need to know about at this point. The public needs to be confident in the fact that the FBI is working with its local partners to get to the bottom of this, to see whether it was a terrorist act, and how it's going to be charged later on is not as of great concern.
Right. I mean, I've sadly covered too many tragedies like this. And it struck me because normally you don't come right out of the gate and label it one terrorist attack or not. Juliet, you say we're looking into all possibilities because it's so early, you don't really know. And there are these explosive devices. This suspect shot at police, hit 2 police officers, 10 people are killed, more than 30 in the hospital. I mean, this is horrific, Juliet. How do you see this?
Yeah, I just think the mayor made a mistake. Let's just, in some ways move on. It has to be clarified. I do not think she should have come out. You actually saw the people behind her sort of flinch. She was speaking as a politician and as someone who
It's not that important. It really is not that important to whether this was a terrorist act or not. We'll figure this out because everyone wants immediate answers. Oh, what happened? What was it? This was it that? Well, just wait. An investigation takes time, right? You're not going to have answers, but some of the things that we do know, right? This person driving this Ford F-150 was motivated to kill people. He entered Bourbon Street, drove it at a high rate of speed, ran over, killed 10 people, injured 30. He was completely ready to die because once he was stopped or his truck was stopped, he shot it out with police. And luckily, he lost that gun battle. He had body armor on, also showing that he was prepared to do whatever was necessary. Improvised explosive devices. Another thing that law enforcement always has to consider when they go near these trucks that commit these heinous crimes is there a booby trap in the truck? Is it set to explode? Is there a triggering device? People may ask, why does this take so long? Because you want to go right in there and just start playing around in this truck as a truck bomb goes off inside that vehicle. So all of these things must be considered. Now, as we said, the investigation. Who is this guy? Where is he from? Does he have accomplices? We got to get quickly on the investigative part of this. Search warrants on his home, search warrants on his computer. Find out where he was the days leading up to this. Who knows him? His victimology, perpology, the study of his background. Who is this guy? Well, right now, we don't even know who he is. They haven't put that out yet. But all of these things, again, take time. And the news media and even us in the public, we don't want to wait for it. We want immediate gratification, Mike.
Yeah, this is the difficulty. We're dying for information, and we have this great communications network called the internet. But the problem is there's a lot of misinformation out there. If you just think back to and we talked about this before that we went on the air. If you look back at the shooting in Las Vegas, the gentleman who was in the hotel, like about 300 yards away from where that concert was, and he shot out the windows, and he had tremendous amount of ammunition and firearms, long-range firearms. We still don't know. It's not exactly clear what his motives were. He was kind of like a loner. He had a girlfriend. He was kind of like a loner. I don't think they lived together, so she didn't know him maybe as well as maybe it would have been helpful if she had. We have to be prepared for the fact that there may not be a manifesto. If there was some sort of manifesto, that would give us information. That would give us concrete information. If it was written in his own hand, we knew about it. We want to know what sites he visited. If we could figure out what sites he visited, or is he someone who really doesn't communicate well with anybody? Has he ever really communicated with anybody in the past, say, 6 months, 3 months, whatever it is, not 10 years ago, but like the last couple of months? Who has he talked to? What did they say? I want to know that. I want to see what sites he visited, because we could look at, he visited a number of different sites. And if he looked at a number of different sites, you could figure out a profile of where his thought process was. But, we might not have it, as clear as we're going to want it once we get that information, because there are times where people are lone wolves. They're a little crazy. They don't talk to a lot of people. They're on their own. We can put together a possible motive, but we might not know exactly what the motive is. So, we're hoping for a lot of communication from this guy, but we don't know if it's going to be there. Let's hope it's there so that we can actually learn from this and, do better law enforcement learning from this.
This is the earlier press conference that they were alluding to.
Command, leading with our mayor, and Mayor Latoya Cantrell will start with her remarks.
Thank you.
Okay, just give us just a little space, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Good morning. First of all, we do know that the city of New Orleans was impacted by a terrorist attack. It's all still under investigation. You'll hear more after me. However, I have been in direct contact with the White House, with Governor Landry, and of course, a unified command who is present here. What I'm asking at this time are prayers for those who have lost their lives in the city of New Orleans due to this tragedy. In addition to that, I'm asking the public to stay clear of 8 blocks around Bourbon Street. Stay clear from Bourbon Street, 8 blocks around. Very active, and again, a unified command is in place right now. I'm going to ask Chief Kirkpatrick to give you an update. You're then going to hear from our agent in charge relative to the FBI. So at this time, Chief Kirkpatrick.
Thank you. All right. Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to give you as much of the information I possibly can. We are going to give you an update a couple of times today. So we will give you just the basics this morning. All right. We had this event started at about 3:15. It did involve a man driving a pickup truck down Bourbon Street at a very fast pace, and it was very intentional behavior. This man was trying to run over as many people as he possibly could. It was not a DUI situation. This is a more complex and more serious based on the information we have right now. With respect to numbers, we have right now, and as you already know, this could change throughout the day. We do know that there are 26 injured people who are at UMC Hospital. We know we have 4 at Turo, 4 at Ochsner Baptist, 1 at Tulane, but even as I was walking out the door, I believe I have an unconfirmed additional people who have been taken to other area hospitals, possibly on the east side. But we will give you as many correct numbers as we can as the day progresses. It is a very tragic situation for me to tell you that we know we have 10 people that this man killed on Bourbon Street. That is why we do not want anyone on Bourbon Street today. Wherever you see yellow tape, please do not violate this tape. This is in order to protect and stabilize the scene. We have information to a certain degree of the demographics of those who are in the hospital right now. We do not know at this point how many could be tourists versus locals. But from the information I have right now, it seems the majority are locals versus tourists. What I also can tell you is that this man, this perpetrator, he fired on our officers from his vehicle when he crashed his vehicle. 2 of our officers have been shot. They are stable, and we will give you an update on them. I have yet been able to go to the hospital. I will be leaving here for us to go visit our officers. We have called in every officer that we have. We have so much appreciated our partnerships who have also offered us staff. Last night, we had over 300 officers out here. And because of the intentional mindset of this perpetrator who went around our barricades in order to conduct this, he was hell-bent on creating the carnage and the damage that he did. Because of the nature and the indices that we have on the scene, and we have enough information that the FBI will be taking over this investigation. And with that, I am going to be asking, this is the Assistant agent in charge. This is Agent Duncan, Special Agent Duncan, and she has taken over this case on behalf of us and the FBI. As always, we will be in partnership with all of our partners. But Agent Duncan, if you want to have a few words for everyone.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning. My name is Alethea Duncan. I'm the Assistant Special Agent in charge for FBI New Orleans. As Chief Kirkpatrick said, we'll be taking over the investigative lead for this event. This is not a terrorist event. What it is right now is their improvised explosive devices that was found, and we are working on confirming if this is a viable device or not. As Chief Kirkpatrick said, we're asking everyone to stay away from Bourbon Street, specifically from Canal Street to St. Anne. That is my ask. Once again, stay away from Bourbon Street, Canal Street, all the way to St. Anne until we can figure out what is going on. Our goal is to provide you additional information at the 11 a.m. press conference. Thank you so much, and we will be in touch.
Yes, I will say that we want our community and our visitors to continue enjoying. There's so much to enjoy about New Orleans, and we are going to make sure that our routes in the Superdome are safe today for the game. And yet we had this tragic event, and we're sorry again to everyone in our community. But we do want you to go about the day, as we say, just stay away from bourbon. Okay?
Can you elaborate on the device? You did say something about the device.
We actually are not going to be taking questions this morning until we have more information. That's why we will give you an 11 o'clock briefing. So until then, please hold your questions. We will give you everything that we possibly can. Okay? So 11 o'clock, we will see you at the headquarters.
So, I think what gets lost here is that, splitting hairs over whether this is a terrorist attack or not. Let's put that aside right now. One of the things I want to mention is that 2 police officers were shot in this incident, in addition to 10 people that were killed and over 30 injured. Those police officers are heroes. They took this guy out. They ended his carnage. They took it, they made him see, well, they took his life and stopped, as I said, his carnage. We don't want to lose sight of that. Now, it's easy to say the chief said, oh, they're in stable condition, but they both took bullets. So we don't know where to where. But, the old expression in the NYPD is fidelis ad mortem, faithful until death, and these guys showed that they were willing to give up their lives to protect others.
Yeah, Bill, people don't realize that, we've done, New Year's Eve celebrations. I did 3 of them myself in 20 years. We've done parades and things like that. And usually, you got your security post, you got your cops underneath you, maybe you sign like 8 cops to every sergeant, and you're doing your thing. And the people there are happy. Everybody's happy. Everybody's just enjoying themselves year after year. There's no real sign of danger. You get a few drunk people every once in a while, but no big deal. And then suddenly in a moment, you have this madness, and there's a truck driving by you at like maybe 30 miles an hour, running people over. You just got to jump into survivor mode at that point. And the adrenaline rush is nothing like anyone could ever imagine. And you got to do the best you can. And the police did the best they could, and their best was excellent. They took this guy out. Some people may be saying that the police were negligent in securing the place, but the police did have barriers. They were not like Jersey barriers, but they were barriers, and they did this over and over again over many, many years. And they probably had no, under information that there would be any intelligence information that they were under any special heightened risk this year. If they were given information by, say, a state or federal or city agency that there was going to be some heightened terrorist, issues coming up in the new year, they may have done something different. But I don't want to see people jumping on the cops and saying, they were negligent because they didn't stop the guy at the very beginning. These sort of things are lightning bolts out of the blue, and you deal with them the best that you can. And they did a good job. Well, Mike, it's the security plan, right? Obviously, in the future,
they can't go with these movable barriers.
Nope.
They have to go with fixed barriers that are so heavy that no one can move them except a crane.
Right.
You know, and those are called Jersey barriers, and that's what they've gone to in New York City, and in areas of New York City, side streets for that matter, they'll park huge sanitation trucks that are immovable also. So it's sad that we have to have these security measures that to thwart a would-be. This guy's a terrorist. No matter what way you slice this, I don't know why they're playing over the semantics here. This is a terrorist act, you know. And again, this happened at 3:15 in the morning. It's 11:35. Why don't we know this guy's name? Why isn't a picture of him out all over the media? Why? It's because you need to use, and again, I'll preach this, you know, beating a dead horse, but you need to use the public. What if people saw this guy before this event? What if they saw him with someone? As we saw in the Luigi Mangione case, we all know there's video everywhere. Where was he caught on video? Who was he with? Was he by himself? Was he with other people? We need to use the public to FBI. Listen to me. We need to use the public to help us in this investigation.
Yeah, and the thing is, policing is political in many, probably some level in all departments, because you're dealing with the mayor's office, you're dealing with the police commissioner's office, you're dealing with elected officials, you're dealing with the public. But we've seen in the past, the FBI has been reticent in giving out information, withholding information for as long as they possibly could hold on to it without it would then it has to be leaked to the public. And, that's a disservice to the public, because the public, deserves to know. It is perhaps people are suggesting in the chat and online, and I can't verify it, but there may be some sort of quasi-political religious issue going on here as a facet of this act. I agree. It may not be considered a terrorist act under some sort of federal, definition, but this is a terrorist act. He'll be, do you want to charge it as a terrorist act on a federal level if the person survived, or would you just want to handle it as a straight murder case on a local level, like they did they're doing with the Mangione case, or that case in, I think it was Michigan or Wisconsin, where the guy ran into the people in right around the Christmas time. He ran into a group of people with this truck at a parade. So he was tried as a regular murder case, and he's doing like life behind bars. But we can squabble over the legal definition, and attorneys like me, we love those legal definitions and fighting over how many angels can dance on the head of a pin and what does the word terrorism mean. But the fact is, I agree, he is a terrorist.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't help anyone when we we just argue over semantics during an incident where 10 are dead and 30 are wounded and 2 police officers shot. It doesn't help us to argue over whether this was, I mean, it's sort of stupid, to tell you the truth, Let me play a little bit of this from CBS News.
Previously served Louisiana in Congress, served as a senior advisor for President Biden as well. I know that you were born in this area, from this area, represented this area. What are your thoughts for your community this morning?
Well, it's tragic. And I would just say that New Orleans is a city that has bounced back from a lot, but it doesn't make it any easier. You had people out celebrating, planning to bring in a new year with new hopes, new ambitions. And unfortunately, those people's families are getting calls today telling them that those people won't be in the new year with them. And so you have a bit of sadness and profound grief for those families. I'm sure that you, at least I do. There's, of course, anger, but it's just unfortunate that we live in a society and in this day and age where these events are becoming all too common. And the hard part is that law enforcement has to get it right 100% of the time. Yeah. And the terrorists only have to get it right once. And this is the result of when they get it right and they find a scene that they can slip through and create havoc and turmoil and as much carnage as possible.
What do you know about the type of celebration that would have been going on at this time around 3 a.m. local time at Bourbon and Canal Streets?
Well, the ball drops, the baby drops at midnight, and then you have a number of people who are still out celebrating. You have live music. It's a open air festival. But what you also have is people that work in that area that are getting off of work, and they're out and about. You have people who actually live in the French Quarter. So it is a combination of hotels, entertainment, homes, and it's our most historic, probably 16 blocks in the United States. And so it hits a nerve and it strikes home when it's Bourbon Street in New Orleans. And think of it this way: our former Congresswoman and Ambassador Lindy Boggs lived on Bourbon Street. Her home was on Bourbon Street. And so we know that there was a massive celebration going on, hence all of the injuries. And so, it will damper the celebration, but it will not keep us from celebrating those people who lost their lives, celebrating those people who were hurt, and celebrating this magnificent city of love and fun.
So, the most important thing right now, of course, is to plan for future events so this doesn't happen again. And, not criticizing law enforcement whatsoever, but perhaps it has to be changed where movable barriers aren't even considered anymore in areas where pedestrians meet in large numbers and vehicles. Pedestrians and vehicles do not mix, as you can see here. The other thing is that, the investigation here is so important. I'm seeing things in the chat, and I'm not privy to it yet to verify it, that the truck, the Ford F-150, was seen crossing the southern border, a couple of days ago. So these are little snippets of the investigation that are leaking out right now. But good investigation takes time, and people usually don't want to wait for that time. So we start. So whether this is true or not, we don't know. But we will bring you more and more of this case as new information comes forward. But here we are, the first of the year, January 1st, 2025, and this has happened. Just horrific, just absolutely horrific. Professor Mike.
Yeah, Bill, we learn from our mistakes, and this is a huge one. And we have to realize that, the idea that if you see something, say something, do something. Yeah, it's not just a slogan. That's reality. And also, if you're in a crowd, keep your head on a swivel, because in crowds, that's where if you think like a terrorist, that's where terrorists want to strike. They're not going to strike at 2 o'clock in the morning on some lonely street in New York City. They want a crowd. They want victims. So always be really careful when you go out anywhere with your family. It could be a mall. It could be a stadium. It could be a sporting event or whatever. Always be careful. Always be on your guard.
Mike, after 9/11, the 9/11 attacks, Mayor Rudolph Giuliani said, no, we're not going to stop any event. We're going to have every single event that's planned. Mm-hmm. And, we're not giving in. We're not letting terrorists dictate to us how we're going to live our life. And I think that's the posture to take. If you as a city, if you as a country start canceling life because you're afraid that terrorists are going to strike, then, it's sort of a corny expression, then they won. And that's true. You're not going to affect the American way of life. You're not going to affect our freedoms. And if some coward like this guy in a Ford F-150 mows down 10 people dead and another 30 injured and then shoots it out with police, then we have to, as a free society, deal with the perpetrator and not shut down our way of life.
Yeah, we put too much effort into our way of life. Our freedom takes time. It takes a lot of effort. You have to, freedom isn't cheap. It's not free. And we work too hard for it. And therefore, we have to protect it. And so, you might change your plans a little bit, but no municipality should ever change, cancel any sort of event like this. Like I said before, I might not go to the event because I'm not a crowd person, but they should have this they should have this event. It should go on as planned. Put a few, put some extra protections in, figure something out, and then do it. But you can't surrender to these people, because if they win, then we have nothing. So everybody just be careful and, try to live your life as best you possibly can, but be careful.
This is someone from the New Orleans City Council.
District. But what's been really tough is hearing from different individuals who are searching for their loved ones. And, I'll say this: call 311 if you're looking for information about your loved ones. It's hard when, you can't seem to find where your loved one is if they're not at any of the hospitals and things like that. Right. So that's been really, really difficult. Horrific situation. And as you know, David, we now have our federal investigators, the FBI is in, and they are the ones who are leading the investigation into this because it is a terrorist attack.
Right. And this is all hands on deck with
All
the
hands on
FBI.
deck.
I know that there are agents who are doing public.
It gets so confusing, Mike. Throughout the day, the New Orleans police say it's a terrorist attack. The FBI says it's not a terrorist attack. Later on in the day, the New Orleans City Council, it is a terrorist. Let's just call it what it is. It's a damn terrorist attack. Stop with the bullshit definition.
Right,
Just
I agree.
Call it what it is.
Corruption and other work who are working on this and this only right now. So you've been briefed. Can you talk about what you've learned in those briefings? Any
Sure.
kind of details you can share?
Sure. So, what I've learned is some of the things that you all have already reported. Obviously, we had this individual come in and go around the barricades and go through, and several people were killed. The death count is 10. I do believe that is going to rise, unfortunately, to even more than 10. And we did have officers injured who were shot. They are in stable condition. We are expecting them to be fine. From what I've learned through my briefings, it does not appear that the suspect is local. So we'll get more information on that at the 11 o'clock briefing. The FBI, as I told you, they are the ones who are leading this investigation. They're bringing in people from Quantico. This is going to be a very extensive processing of this scene because it is a terrorist attack. We do not expect Bourbon Street to be open anytime soon. Within the next 48 hours, I would say that Bourbon Street will likely be shut down as this investigation continues. I also want to make sure that people know that there are additional sweeps that are happening throughout the French Quarter and also throughout the city as well. Additional bomb dogs have been brought in to do these additional sweeps. Chief Kirkpatrick requested that this morning. There are additional sweeps happening right now at the Superdome. So I would just at this moment, please stay away from the French Quarter. And also, even if you're navigating around downtown, you're probably not going to be able to drive to where you're thinking you're going to be able to drive through because of all the different sweeps that are occurring at this moment.
Right. And some of our reporters are telling us who are out around parts of the French Quarter and other areas of the city that, and particularly further down Bourbon Street, further into the heart of the quarter, hearing explosions. We don't know if those are other IEDs or if those are just safety explosions. Do you have any information on that?
Yeah, there are additional sweeps happening for potential IEDs. And so that's happening. Whether or not something has been detonated or not, I have not received that kind of information. But, yes, that is happening. And there's, the potential that there are also other suspects involved.
Yeah. Okay. So do you know anything more about any other potential accomplices or do we not know?
So from what I understand, there is a potential that other suspects could be involved in this, and all hands on deck on determining who these individuals are and finding them.
And we talked about the bollards. When Mayor Mitch Landrieu was in office, a lot of money was spent to put those bollards in. Apparently those bollards were not there. Do we know why?
So, and speaking with state police, from what I understand is that those bollards were currently being repaired. And so those bollards had not been activated. They would have, from what I understand from state police, been ready for the Super Bowl. But from what I understand, the reason why there were different barricades there is because the bollards at this moment had not been functional.
And they were being repaired, or so they were taken out, essentially.
I'm not sure if they were taken out or what, but somehow they were being repaired.
Right. And those were funded with Homeland Security money. So this is precisely what they would have been.
No doubt
to
about it.
prevent.
I mean, those bollards, were there for the purpose of keeping individuals from driving down Bourbon Street. But I think now, David, moving forward, we need to come up with an additional plan. And I know that Rodney Hyatt with Troop NOLA is already exploring this right now. What do we do immediately to better secure the French Quarter? Rodney Hyatt with Troop NOLA, he's been looking at different things happening in New York as to different resources that are deployed even for like their New Year's Eve event that they just had last night, and what can be done immediately right now to secure the French Quarter. So whether it's bringing in additional sand trucks, whether that's, bringing in, stronger concrete barricades, like all of those different things, blocking all of the different entrances coming into Bourbon Street, all of those things right now are being looked at and analyzed immediately moving forward.
So that's where we're at right now. To give a recap, as we know, 10 people were killed, approximately 30 people, the number's changing all the time, injured by someone who's yet to be identified, drove a Ford F-150 pickup truck through Bourbon Street around the barrier and just ran people over. When he was confronted, he shot it out with police and he was killed. That's what we know at this point. There's a lot of conjecture. There's New Orleans police have been calling this a terrorist attack. The FBI is saying it's not. So, which is all sort of ridiculous. But this is the world we live in right now, folks, and we really need the police and the public both to take part in making our lives safer. Mike, your final thoughts.
Final thoughts. I would like to see that the politicians in New Orleans and the local FBI officers handling this, get together on the same page so they have a unified message to the public. I don't think it helps anybody in any way, and actually hurts the public's confidence in the mayor's office and in the FBI's office to be nitpicking over this. Let's just call it what it is. It's right now, it is absolutely a suspected terrorist attack. We don't know for sure, but it is absolutely suspected of it because it seems on prima facie, it seems like that attack. Let's leave it at that. But everyone enjoy your life, and you cannot let this sort of thing deter you from getting out in the public and doing your thing. Just be really, really careful.
Absolutely. Folks, that's our report for today, January 1st, 2025. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Bye now.
One episode just ain't enough.